I guess we have to, at the top of the show, talk about the fundraiser. And I guess this, like, Vinod Khosla came in hot this week and attacked the Besties. Let's play the clip.
What is your sense of the shifting winds in the Valley around politics? I think for a very long time, the Valley was seen as sort of a liberal bastion. But, you know, if you listen to Elon Musk or you listen to All In podcast and that gang and others, it seems to be shifting potentially towards former President Trump. Is that just a small pocket, or do you think that that's a real shift in terms of the way the Valley's thinking politically?
The first thing I would say is All In podcast and some of the supporters there are not based in the Valley. I would say there's a bunch of MAGA extremists in every part of society. And I hope we can prevent them from destroying democracy, which is probably the most important issue we face.
All right, Zach, why are you destroying democracy? Now that's a good bit, Jacob. That's good. All right, David. Vinod was at the conference. He got a little chippy here. Maybe he got a little bit out of line. He was a little bit out of line. What's your take?
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Well, first of all, Vinod should realize we're not MAGA extremists or extremists of any sort because he was at All In Summit last year.
He was great.
Yeah, we liked what he had to say.
Productive.
And I certainly don't dispute his expertise and track record in tech. But in addition to that, then he's saying that we're not based in Silicon Valley. We're not from Silicon Valley. We've all been here for decades. And then he doubled down on that in a tweet. So that's
weird.
a bizarre statement. Maybe he thinks he gets to define people in or out of Silicon Valley. I don't really understand it. But to be frank, this is one of a series of statements that he's made recently that I can only call insulting and childish. First, he had this tweet that he said that Trump supporters were lacking in empathy and caring. Then he had another tweet where he said that Trump supporters weren't teaching good values to their kids. This caused Sean McGuire, who's a partner at Sequoia, to quote tweet him saying that I think that I'd rather raise my kids to grow up to take after Ivanka Trump than Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
And that got like something like 20,000 likes. And it was one of those brutal ratios I've ever seen on a tweet. So in any event, I mean, this is just one in a series of partisan tweets. And look, I think you can take whatever position you want on a political candidate. I can understand if he doesn't like Trump. A lot of people don't. He's raising money for Biden. That's fine. Doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, he just had a fundraiser like 2 weeks ago or something.
You're right, exactly. That's not an issue at all. But what I do take offense at is labeling millions and millions of ordinary Americans as somehow lacking in empathy, lacking in caring, not being good parents, because you don't like their support for Trump.
Yeah.
And I think that is a statement that frankly reeks of being cocooned in an elite bubble for way too long. And let me just explain. If you look at where Trump's support is strongest, it's really in middle America, in sort of the heartland of America, of what
in between the elite states.
Basically, the part of America that coastal elites dismissively refer to as flyover country.
Sure.
And it's a lot of the industrial Midwest. And frankly, that part of the country has not had the same type of economic experience that we've had in Silicon Valley.
Of course.
They have not been beneficiaries of globalization.
Or equities, and they're in the working class, and the working class and the factories got gutted. Yeah.
Well, yeah, look, if you're in one of the handful of export industries in America, and I'm talking about if you're in Hollywood or you're in big finance or you're in software, then globalization has been great for you because it has created huge global markets for our products. However, if you're in an industry that has to compete with global exports, then it's been very bad with you. And blue collar workers have been hurt. Labor's been hurt. People who work with their hands have been hurt. They have not benefited in the same way from the system that we've had in this country for the last 30 years. So you can understand why they would not be so enchanted with elite thinking.
Of course.
And I think to then label those people as lacking in caring or empathy or not being good parents because they haven't had the same economic ride that you've had for the last 30 years, and then it's
a blind spot.
You are the one who is fighting a legal battle to kick some of those people, the public,
the
off
surfers
a
at his
public beach kick the public off of the public beach in front of your beach house. And then you're saying they're the ones lacking in empathy? Dude, look in the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the great irony of this is, as you know, the Democrats were supposed to be the party of the working people, and Biden was supposed to be the pinnacle of that, like fighting for unions, fighting for the working person. And so they've just lost that whole thing. And
I'll say, it feels like a lot of people are tilted because they defeated Trump and now he's back. And so that tilts a lot of people. Like there was a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and a feeling of success that Trump was ousted. And the fact that the guy is now the front runner to be president again can be very tilting after feeling like you've already won the battle. And guess what? It's back. I will also defend Vinod real quick. I'll say, having known Vinod for a long time, he's an investor with me. He's a guy I've come to appreciate and think highly of. We had him at the summit.
he was great at the summit.
He was great at the summit.
It was awesome.
If you listen to his thing, he said the listeners of the pod, and then he said MAGA extremists. So they're not based in Silicon Valley. I think he was referencing that the listeners of the pod are not based in Silicon Valley and they are MAGA extremists.
I couldn't hear.
I think what he meant to say was, and some of the supporters there are not based in Silicon Valley, meaning like the supporters.
Chamath, your thoughts on Vinod's comments?
Yeah, I think Vinod's comments are a microcosm of something that's a little bit bigger than just him, and I think is roughly emblematic of the mainstream media, which is, I think the four of us have found over the course of these last 4 years doing the podcast, a rhythm where there's a whole diversity of views. We've always respected each other. We've learned from each other. And each of us have taken turns expressing something that the others have ended up converging on. That's not a holistic statement on every issue, but it has happened. And that's an incredible example of how you should figure things out from first principles, especially things that matter. And I think this is the first time. And, look, David said this a few years ago. He said, Sachs did, that the course of elections will be driven by podcasts. And I didn't give that a full enough weighting at the moment when he said it. But I think what I'm realizing is it's not necessarily just that podcasts will frame elections, but it's the counterfactual, which is that it fills a vacuum. And I think what you're seeing right now are the reactions of people that have thrived in what used to work, which was a traditional media infrastructure that would shape how people were supposed to think. But then all of a sudden, if you can have a platform like this, where people just talk from first principles respectfully, and then the chips are going to be what it is, and people will come to their own conclusions. I think that that's what people are reacting to. So I think what Vinod is reacting to is this sort of discomfort where you see four reasonable, intelligent people all of a sudden talk open-mindedly about what's happening in the presidential election. And what you leave out is the planted orthodoxy of what you're supposed to think. And that's disconcerting to him. It's just disconcerting and confusing maybe to Sorkin, who I think is a wonderful reporter and a thinker. It's disconcerting, Jason, to every single media outlet over the last week that's breathlessly been trying to get me or Sachs to have an opinion on this. And the reason I've deleted all of these emails is they don't get a chance to frame what we think. You can listen to the podcast and know what we think. This is the future of how smart, reasonable, moderate people should make decisions. It is an example. Talking to somebody you disagree with does not make your opinion bastardized. It actually makes your opinion valuable. There are these simple truths to living a productive life that if you want to embrace, you need to find friends that you can trust, even on issues when you disagree, you can hear them out. So that's what's happening right now. And I think that that's why we all need to sort of stand together and lock in arms and just keep moving forward. It is something really important here that's happening. And I think that's why the media and these opinion makers are losing their minds.
Friedberg, your thoughts on this? You're friends with Vinod, as you mentioned, and you've always said to me and in our personal discussions that the reason you do this pod is because you really want to set an example of how to have great conversations and learn from each other and the tone of what we do here. So your thoughts on this?
The unfortunate reality in a voting system, an election cycle like we're in, Vinod went and did a fundraiser. It's public that he did a fundraiser for Biden a few weeks ago. And he wants to win the election. He wants to make his horse win. There's a lot of reasons why I'm sure Vinod has chosen that person to be his horse. And so when you get on the playing field, you got two teams and only one team wins. So, everyone pulls out all the stops to win. One of the things that is done is unfortunate, and it over time causes an erosion and a hardening into a kind of polarity between all people, which is that you call the other side wrong or bad or extreme. The term that he used, which really, I think, personifies the problem, is he said they're MAGA extremists.
Extremists being the word, right? MAGA just means make America great again, which I think everybody wants to make America great again, right?
Whatever. The extremism phrase is used by both parties to describe the points of view of the other side. And what I think is lacking is a reshifting of the perspective to say their views are valid. I acknowledge their views. I hear them. I know why they feel that way. I'm understanding where that group of people are coming from. And to have that acknowledgement, unfortunately, softens and weakens your position and ability to go out and win an election. And so both sides harden themselves and use terms like this to try and discredit the other side. So it's unfortunate to see. I think we all understand where someone who's trying to win a battle on the field is coming from when they're trying to do this. But I do think that what is deeply lacking in the erosion that's arisen is because we can't say, I hear you, I see the problems, I recognize you as people just like us. You have kids, you have families, and you have a different point of view on the policies that will work and the individual that will realize those policies.
I also think it's important to make sure that we reiterate again, at the sake of being pedantic, the facts, which is this is a nonpartisan show, and it is a platform that has showcased and given time to Democrats and Republicans
and independents.
Yeah. And they've all taken us up on it. So that thought by Vinod is at best incomplete and more appropriately just stupid and factually wrong.
That's a good point. Larry Summers spoke at the same conference that Vinod did.
Larry Summers, Dean Phillips, Bobby Kennedy, Chris Christie. I mean, this is a spectrum of people that we are bringing on. Again, so that
Sheryl Sandberg,
you can hear from
Jared
them.
Kushner. Yeah.
Jared Kushner. You can hear from them in an unfiltered way and come to your own conclusion. That's why we were number 8 last week. That's the exact reason why. And I think that that's very scary because instead of power brokers being able to filter an opinion, you now have an opportunity to just hear it for yourself, discuss it amongst your friends, and come to your own conclusion. So we have always been bipartisan here, and we will continue to be bipartisan. The second thing is, and I just want to say this again, I have asked the White House for President Biden to come on the show.
Oh, come on the show, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we've offered the exact same thing.
We are just waiting.
People really don't want me to be friends with you guys. They want me to end my friendship with you, Chamath. They want me to end my friendship with you, Sachs. And these are people who are mutuals, I just want to say. And I want to just tell them all equally to go themselves here. You can bleep out the F word. I'm not picking my friends based on their political parties or their leanings or who they're supporting for president. The way I look at this, Sachs, is at this point, we're all Americans. We're in this together. America survived Trump's presidency. America's going to survive Biden's presidency. The democratic process, it is very messy. Everybody gets to have a voice. And let's just pause for a second here and open up the aperture. Let's be thankful that everybody gets to have a say. Let's keep it from getting personal. Half the humans on this planet Earth do not have a voice. The one thing that's trending in the wrong direction globally is people living in a democracy. It's the one thing not getting better. We have a lot of work to do in this country. We have to respect each other like we try to do here on this podcast. And we have to talk about the important issues. We all agree the budget's out of control. We all agree the education system sucks. We live in a multipolar world. We have to figure that out. When we should go to war, when we shouldn't, when we need to stay out of things. These are complicated issues. And name calling in this presidency is not as important as tackling these issues together as Americans. I hope everybody can keep that in mind. So let's debate this. May the best candidate win. And then let's move on and let's solve some problems here. Okay? And it's getting very personal.
Yeah.
Well said. Really well said.
I know I'm really hurt by this because I tell you personally, it's very hurtful to me because I value our friendships. And
they're picking on the wrong guy because you're the most loyal guy. And so it's kind of like it's going to be the least effective.
Well, you still care what they think, Jake. That's the problem. So they can get to you.
No, you can ask me if I do that. Don't tell me what I think, Sachs. You can ask me.
Okay.
I actually care
do you
about
still
people.
care about what they think?
The two of you bicker like brothers. It's
No,
so
we
funny.
do. But I know I just have to retrain Sachs that he can't tell me what I think. He can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because you do that. You put words in my mouth.
For all listeners, I just want you to know they've been bickering like this for 20 years. So it's the funniest thing because it just never stops.
And it happens even worse offline when we're not on the show.
It's unbelievable.
Nonstop.
You're ruining it, Jake. You're just ruining it right now.
No, here's the thing. I respect, all of my friends, and I like having a diversity of opinions. That makes life more interesting for me. And then to tell me I can't be friends with this person, that person, the way I grew up, my dad had a bar, Hells Angels, cops, firefighters, just everybody was allowed to come and hang out at the bar. Like, we're here, we're having a discourse, everybody's welcome for a seat at the table.
LGBTQ, were they allowed?
All of them, the entire rainbow.
What people haven't figured out yet is that cancel culture is over. Virtue signaling is over.
Absolutely. DEI is over.
It's
all this
off
nonsense.
trend, not on trend. And the people who are still tweeting these blanket statements and they're trying to demonize the entire other side with unfactual, unfounded pot shots are just making fools of themselves. And you can see that in the reaction on X.